And welcome back to another edition of NASCAR DFS Preview with the Sports Chief. I'm AustYn.
And I am Yacs.
And it's been a little while since we did our last video. The Bristol Dirt Race, there was really no point to making one because the way the qualifying worked out, and of course, as you all know, they had the heat races were rained out, and that was going to be the qualifiers. The race was pushed out to Monday. And honestly, it was such an unknown that it was really hard to put together a solid lineup. You didn't really have any research to go off of, other than the fact that some people had dirt racing background. It turns out it really didn't matter. Ricky Stenhouse got second, so I guess it helped him in the long run, but he was really not a contender all day.
No.
So anyway, we move our efforts over to Martinsville Speedway in Virginia. The governor of Virginia has graced NASCAR with the ability to have 30% fans there. So there's going to be some fans in the stands. They did run this race last year, right? Or did they run two?
They ran two races, but
no fans.
Only one was a night race.
That's
this
right.
will be a night race too.
Yeah, so that was one thing that was really interesting in terms of the way we were going to manipulate the drivers, because night racing and day racing is very different, and especially in the South. I mean, it can get really hot this time of year in the day, and then it cools off a little bit at night, and that affects tire wear, that affects a lot of things. And normally the cars pick up speed at night. Even though it's Martinsville, you have a lot of horsepower going into those corners. You slam on the brakes. Brake wear is going to be very key. So Goodyear looks like they brought the same tire as last year to the track, so that's not really going to be a big concern. So you can look at last year's results a little bit.
And apparently they were testing rain tires, so that could be something interesting to look out for.
That'd be way different.
Yeah,
I know,
especially the short tracks.
Yeah,
like Martinsville.
I know with even the dirt, they were sort of like rain tires. They had tread on them, and they were burning through the tread really quick. So, Martinsville would really burn it because you get on the gas really hard leaving the corners. So I guess one thing to note, track position is very key, so that's one thing we'll be looking at in our lineups. Normally, you don't get a lot of passes at this track, so you have the asphalt to concrete going into the corners, and the tires act differently in that way too. So, and it's just really hard to pass without bumping people. Martinsville is I have been there, and I've said that in previous videos, but it's a very fun race to watch. So much speed going into the corners and then the brakes and everything. So car management is going to be very key as well. And that's why you tend to see the same drivers every race perform well at this track. So do you have anything else to add there?
I don't think so.
So there's 500 laps, 9 sets of tires for this event. So they do have plenty of tires. That does seem a little low, to be honest. But with gas mileage and everything, they can run a very long time here. And the tires don't eat up as much here as they would at like Bristol or, Richmond's kind of freshly paid. But even Richmond, you have a lot more wear in the corners. It's more brakes. Yeah. So let's go ahead and see what DraftKings has to offer this week. And I do have one thing to say right off the gate. There are 7 drivers that are 10K. I know there have been 6 that have been 10K. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I've never really seen 7 before. And actually, they priced, like Martin Truex is $12,000. Martin Truex has been performing well, but, he has done pretty well recently at Martinsville, but there was a time where Martin Truex didn't have a short track win. And that's only been like a couple of years ago.
Truex, he is the only night race winner at Martinsville.
So
that's the reason why I feel like he's number one, and he's number one FanDuel as well at 14,000.
And there's probably good reason for that. That just seemed a little high for me, and I don't know. It like really caught my eye, threw me off. So doing my Bristol lineups last week, and I know we didn't do a video, but I did pretty well. And one thing the reason why I did well is because I went kind of against the grain. I didn't pick a lot of the dirt drivers, so I feel like that's probably a decent strategy going forward, and definitely here at Martinsville. Without practice, and we had practice at Bristol, and I do think that I had it pretty down pat with practices. I felt like I was more confident in making my lineups. When you have this, you don't have anything to go off of. It's really just past performance and really the momentum going into the race. But Martin Truex is at 12,000, starting in 7th. Kyle Larson starting in 19th at 11.7. Chase Elliott starting in 5th at 11.4. Brad Keselowski starting in 10th at 11,000. Joey Logano on the pole at 10.7. Denny Hamlin starting in 2nd at 10.4. And rounding out our top-tier drivers are Ryan Blaney starting in 4th at 10.1. Now, one thing to note about Joey Logano, I feel like every time he's on the pole, he wins the race or he's like leading a bunch of laps. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Joey Logano lead about 100 laps. One thing to note about Denny Hamlin, I know Denny Hamlin is a very popular choice, and for good reason. His average finish is the best among the field at 9.9, just slightly better than Brad Keselowski. He has 5 wins, 21 top 10s, and 30 starts. But Denny Hamlin has not performed that well in the last 5 or so races here, and it's been a little while since he's won at this track, so that's one thing to note there. Chase Elliott was the last winner at Martinsville. He led 200 and some laps starting in 5th, but Chase has not been performing that great this year, so I'm a little leery of going there. Kyle Larson has never performed well at Martinsville either. This is not one of his strong tracks, but he is in a Hendrick Motorsports car, and Hendrick always performs well at Martinsville. Jimmy Johnson dominated this place. Jeff Gordon always ran well here. This is just a track. I believe it was Rick Hendrick's first win with Jeff Bodine back in the 80s.
Sounds right.
So it's something that they always are very prideful and work hard to perform well at Martinsville. And, he's an interesting pick. He's got a lot of positive EV, and he'd probably be relatively low owned. But one of my strategies was, like I stated earlier, is the fact that, or what my strategy is going to be, is that I'm going to look at the starting position and kind of look at the price points. So Kyle Busch at 9.8, that seems a little low, to be honest. I know Kyle's not been performing that great, but that is a little low. Kevin Harvick, he's at 9.6. That's eyebrow raising. Alex Bowman starting in 20th. Okay. Kurt Busch 21st, 8.9. Kurt has actually only has 9 top 10s and 41 starts here.
But 2 wins.
That's right. And he's performed relatively well
Yeah.
in the last few starts. So one of the things that I actually did coming into this race, I kind of wanted to go with one manufacturer and pick drivers from that team. I know that's worked out well with me in the past. Sometimes it's come back to bite me. A lot of times last year I would go Penske at the short tracks because they absolutely dominated the short track scene last year. Now, I don't think Penske is the team this year, so that's just giving you a preview of what my lineup's going to be. My first option when going through prices, and normally I pick a top driver, but this time I'm not. I'm going with Bubba Wallace starting in 25th at 7.3. So Bubba Wallace has won 2 truck races here. His average finish is 21.7, which is better than where he's starting. And his average finish on the trucks is 3.8. I do think this car is a little better than what he had at Richard Petty Motorsports. And this is going to give you kind of a hint of what I'm going with. He's in Team Toyota. I really feel like Bubba Wallace can give me a positive EV at 7.3. I've never really picked Bubba that much, but it's always been because he starts around the 20s. Now he's in 25th at a track that he's very comfortable with. If they're going to compete this year, he's got to perform well here. Like Daniel Suarez did at Bristol Dirt. That shocked the heck out of me. In fact, he went up there and led most of the race. Not most of the race, but he did lead a good chunk of it.
Yeah, he raced great.
So I really like Bubba Wallace, at least to get me a top 15, because that's really all I'm asking for. And I think that's going to give me enough cushion to pick another driver. Now, let's go ahead and scroll down to the bottom here. Really, you can rule out Ware, Yaley, Half, Bidelicki, all those drivers there. And stop at Corey Lejoy. So Corey Lejoy starting in 34th. He's priced really well at $5,200. I know he had a lot of positivity going into this ride, thinking that he was going to perform really well, and he really hasn't performed any better than what he did at Go Fast.
Not really.
So he has 3 straight top 25 finishes here at Martinsville, which is one thing to note about Corey Lejoy. And he's a good option to pick towards the bottom, but I'm not going to go that route. I don't want to pick a driver starting that far back. I'm still a little skeptical of him being able to get a top 20. And then you have Anthony Alfredo, Justin Haley, Michael McDowell in 14th. That's not bad. Ryan Preece 17th. He's got modified background. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has been performing great this year. He's starting in 6th. That's way too high for him at this track. Suarez in 11th. I don't like that yet. This is asphalt, so it's going to be totally different from what we had last week. And Briscoe's been underperforming. But Ross Chastain is a driver that I really like, and he's starting in 27th at 6.3. So Ross Chastain, if you look at his season performance so far, he actually has racked up quite a bit of top 20s. So him being in 27th spot, I feel like he can get to the 20s in that range. And one thing that I really wanted to note was that he, in the Xfinity Series, he finished 4th with Colleague Racing. And he led most of the race, and he had some issues, like on pits and things, pit stops. I really like Ross Chastain to get me a top 20 at least. He's in a fast enough car. Ganassi has performed okay at these tracks, especially with Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch was not good at this track until he came to Ganassi. So they do have the Hendrick engine program as well. I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Yeah.
They don't have ECR.
No.
That is Richard Petty. That's Eric Jones. Sorry, I had to pause there and think.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
I was trying to think myself.
Ganassi is with Hendrick, and so is JTG Daugherty. But I do like Ross Chastain, and the reason being is, you look at Briscoe, he's starting a little higher than him. Chris Buescher in 15th, that's probably about where he'll end up. Eric Jones 16th, that's probably about where he'll end up. Ryan Newman 8th, he might end up there. He might get a top 10.
It's possible.
He's probably not a bad tournament option. I don't think he'll be picked very heavily because of where he's starting, but he has performed pretty well here. I believe his average finish is like top 15.
He's pretty decent here.
And he's running the modified race, I did see, so he's actually got a little bit of track time. Totally different car, but Cole Custer, I didn't like his truck performance here. And then once you get up there, Ross Chastain just seemed like a no-brainer to me. Alfredo doesn't have enough experience here for me to go off of. Haley would be okay, but he's in a Spire car, so... let's just scroll up here and let me speed it up here. So that gives me 9,100 average salary to spend. I will go ahead and tell you, one of the most highly owned drivers this week will be Eric Almarola in DraftKings. So he's at 8,100. He's starting in 31st. He has actually performed decent here in the Stewart-Haas car, and he's priced low enough to where people are going to pick him. Matt Benedetto is going to be another one that's going to be picked really heavily, starting in 22nd. And Team Penske, I don't know if you have the stats on him, but he's finished top 15 every time since he's been in the Wood Brothers car.
Benedetto, I didn't really do a whole lot of research on Benedetto, but he does run pretty well here, actually.
Yeah, so he's one to consider, but I think he'll be picked heavily.
Yeah, he will be.
One driver that I'm going with Christopher Bell at 8,400, starting in 23rd. I don't have a lot of evidence to go off of that, but he actually was pretty good in the Truck Series here. His average finish was 8th. So he was always decent in the Truck Series. Never ran an Xfinity race here. But in a Joe Gibbs Racing car, I really love the Toyotas this week. And I think that they're going to perform a little better than the Fords will this week. So going with Christopher Bell hopefully gets me a top 15. And I'm okay with that, honestly. I really just want a positive finish from my lower tier drivers because I'm hoping my top ones that I pick are the ones that lead the race. Because I firmly believe that if you're just going out here and picking the driver that you think will win, 9 times out of 10, you're going to mess up. You're going to pick somebody, and it's going to really burn you. But if you go off of the number, the salary, and the starting position, that's what's going to help you. And you're more than likely, even though you may not think that driver will perform that great, you're more than likely to pick him, and he'll probably dominate. I mean, I feel like you have a higher likelihood of doing that because you pick them at a great value. And it's just an added surprise if they perform well.
Yeah.
Hey, I picked Martin Truex in both Bristol, the Xfinity, Trucks and Cup, and he led most of the race.
Yeah.
Why? He was priced at like 8 something or 9. It was something cheap.
Because he didn't have the experience.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, they're still the best drivers in the world.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it like that too. But I'll get off my spiel there. But I have 93 average salary to spend, and what I'm going with here, I'm going to pick Austin Dillon starting in 18th at 7-1. So Austin Dillon is priced well enough to where I really believe he'll finish better than 18th. He's the type driver that always hangs around the top 15 anyway. Tyler Reddick in 13th. I don't think Reddick will finish higher than that. And track position, like I stated earlier, is very key. 18th spot is high enough to where he could make a run. He could get a couple spots on pit road, make a few passes under green, and there you go. He got a top 10. And his track record here is just okay. He's got an average finish of 19th, which is about where he's starting. So even ultimately, if he finishes about where he's starting, I'm okay with that. And that gives me 10-4 to spend.
If I'm not mistaken, Dillon had I want to say like a third place finish there.
He has finished that high before.
Within the last couple years. So,
yeah.
I mean, he can run that well.
His last few starts haven't been that great, but when he first became a Cup driver, he was pretty good here, actually. Yeah. And that gives me 10-4 to spend. Looking at the top drivers in the field, and this is what made it really tricky for me. So William Byron starting in third. He's at 8-7. You could go William Byron, and you could get any driver that you want. So William Byron, likelihood of him leading a lot of laps is pretty high, I feel like. He has been performing really well this year, and that's not a bad choice. Alex Bowman will be another highly owned player, I believe, at 9,200. You have 11-7. You could go up and get Kyle Larson. So you have 2 Hendrick cars there. Well, with my strategy, I did state that I want to pick a team that is pretty solid there. So I got Bubba Wallace, Christopher Bell. I'm going to go with Kyle Busch, starting in 12th at 9-8. Kyle Busch's average finish here is 12th. That kind of led me towards this as well. 18 top 10s and 31 starts. He's got an average finish of 6th in the last 10 starts. Now, he has kind of went downhill a little bit, to be honest, in the past couple of years. Well, last year he didn't perform up to speed at all with 1 win. But Kyle looked, actually, the dirt race, he took the lead really early. And he had an overheating issue and never recovered. I believe Kyle is semi-back. And I think that his top, he's 9,800. He always was priced like towards the top. And honestly, Kevin Harvick's not a bad option at 9,600. I've seen Kevin Harvick perform really well at Martinsville. He's won once here. But he's just kind of okay. And I'm a little leery of that team right now. I don't think they're finding speed at all right now. So going with Kyle Busch there at 9,800. Leaves me with 11-1, and I know you all think, if you're looking at the screen, I'm picking Brad Keselowski, but I'm not. I'm going with Denny Hamlin at 10-4. Reason being, I kind of feel great about the Toyotas. Denny Hamlin's been driving astronomically well this year. And I like him to come away with a win here at Martinsville. I know I did state earlier that he hasn't performed that well here lately, but again, I went through from bottom basically to the top. Bottom to the top. I know I'm not on the camera, but that looked really bad. But so go from the bottom to the top, and this was my strategy. I feel like if you're looking at this and you want to do a quick one, you can go Brad Keselowski in 10th. Oh, Alex Bowman in 20th. You have 7,400 to spend. I'm going to go Corey Lejoy because I think he gets a top 20. You have 8,200. Now you're scrolling up here. I kind of like Eric Almarola. He's at 81. That gives me 8,200 to spend. You can go Bubba Wallace, and then you have 9,200, and then you go William Byron. And that's not a bad option. You're just kind of picking really quick. But that would be my, I guess, cash game strategy because you have a lot of drivers not towards the top except William Byron. But I do feel like I have a good balance of solid drivers. So I'll just go through here. So I got Denny Hamlin at 10-4. Denny Hamlin at Martinsville, and he is the 6th highest priced driver. I don't know. I feel like DraftKings is maybe kind of slipping that in there, especially at the starting position. Joey Logano may be highly owned as well. Not sure how it's going to pan out. But Kyle Busch starting in 12th at 9.8. Christopher Bell starting in 23rd at 8.4. Bubba Wallace starting in 25th at 7.3. AustYn Dillon starting in 18th. A Chevy driver, not going full Toyota. And then going with Ross Chastain. See, I still had quite a bit of money to spend. I had $700 left over. Ross Chastain starting in 27th at 6.3. So that's my DraftKings lineup. So let's head over and see what Yacs got on Fanduel.
Track position is going to mean absolutely everything. You want drivers that are going to lead laps. You want drivers that are going to compete for the lead. You want guys that are going to complete laps. I think I already said that, didn't I?
Well, you have that laps completed thing. With Fanduel that you don't have.
You need guys that are going to run well. That seems too obvious, but in all seriousness, Martinsville, you got to have these guys in your lineup. I have a quick stat, and I want you to give your best guess if you didn't already kind of notice this. In the 72-year history of Martinsville, how many drivers have won the race starting 25th or worse in the history of Martinsville and NASCAR?
Probably like 3.
One.
Kurt
Busch in 2002.
Wow.
He started, I think, 36th, if I'm not mistaken, and that was the only time in NASCAR history that a driver has started worse than 25th and won the race. Track position means everything. So you're definitely not going to have a guy.
I picked 1.
I mean,
outside 20th.
I mean, not to say they won't run well.
Yeah.
But
no, that's good.
If you're picking guys to win the race, don't look beyond 25th. Don't look beyond 20th really. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to look out for in my lineup. So we're heading into the Fanduel lineups. Austin did a great job of breaking down all the tiers and whatnot. Martin Truex was the last winner of the night race, the first and only night race winner at Martinsville. I feel like that's the reason why he is in the top spot. Chase Elliott was the last winner of the Martinsville race. Brad Keselowski he's only won a couple races at Martinsville, but he's basically the king of Martinsville. He runs very well. I believe in his last 10, he has all top 10s. So, he's insane here. But, so the strategy that I wanted to look out for is pick as many top tier drivers as you can. And in FanDuel, I think they're making that possible this week. So I'm just going to get it out of the way. Tier 1, Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin is the winningest driver at Martinsville among current drivers. He has 5 wins. Austin mentioned before he's not ran very well as of late. In his last 6, he has a 9.7 average finish. And his last win was in 2015. Yeah. So I feel like he's due.
He's due.
I feel like he's due. So in the second starting spot, he's already going to be up there. I think he'll run well regardless of what happens, and I just think you just need to pick him this week because I think he's just going to be one of those guys you need in your lineup. We're going to move down to the bottom level. Yeah, don't really look at these guys, Yaley, Ware, Davison, Half, Balicki, McLeod, Alfredo. I don't really even consider them. I mean, they're not going to compete, much less try to win the race. Yeah. One guy that I had in my lineup as of this morning, and I changed my mind, was Corey Lejoy. Corey Lejoy has 2 top 20 finishes at Martinsville. I believe they were both 18th place finishes. Yep. I think he could do that again, but he's not really proved it this year. So I just feel like I need a little more time to decide that he's a worthy option to pick any given week as a cheap option. I feel like I go to this well often, but he's just hard to pass up, especially at 3,500. Ross Chastain, starting in 27th in the 42 car. He has experience at Martinsville. He's raced 4 races here. Not been in good equipment. I'm just not even going to say the stats. It's not been good equipment. They only raced 1 Xfinity race, and he raced in it. He got a 5th place finish. And
I said 4th, but
it was a 5th place.
Okay.
But close
Whoops.
Enough.
Whoops.
It was a top 5, close enough.
Yeah.
And he has an average finish in the Truck Series of 8 races, 11.4. He has 4 top 10s.
Pretty good.
So he runs well here. If he's in decent equipment, I think he'll run well here. Will he win the race? I say there is a very, 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 very small chance that he will win the race. But can he compete in the top 15? Can he get you points? I think he can. And 3,500, that is ridiculously cheap because he's around Corey Lejoy, Justin Haley, Michael McDowell. He ran well early, but these are guys that I think he's above, personally, especially this week. Mm-hmm. So,
and one thing to note about Ross Chastain. Now, I know that he's in a better car now than what he was in the past, like running for Jay Robinson in Premium. But one thing he did with those teams, he was known for keeping the car on the track. So if he runs anything like that in this car, he'll probably get all 500 laps in.
Yeah.
More than likely.
Yeah.
He'll probably stay on the lead lap. He might be a lap down, but At that, I don't know why they priced him so low, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem right. But yeah, like he said, you want laps completed in FanDuel for sure.
Did go by the sports chief.
3,500. That's just really cheap for him. Moving on up, Daniel Suarez had a heck of a race at Bristol Dirt. I don't think anybody expected that. I don't think you go with him this week because 11th place is that's just too risky for him. He could have run that well. Don't get me wrong, but 11th place is a little high starting spot for him, I feel like. Like AustYn said, Eric Jones, Chris Buescher, Briscoe, Custer, that's probably about where they'll end up. Custer could move up a little bit, but he's not been particularly good here at Martinsville. Briscoe, I'm not really sure about Briscoe. I don't think he's ran that well here either.
Not really.
So I could see him finishing around 24th, 20th in that area. I don't think it'll be any higher. Ryan Newman could. Bubba Wallace was an interesting pick. I was considering picking him, but I felt like this option with my lineup gave me a better chance to win more race, more of an opportunity to win the race, get a driver that would win it. Austin Dillon was an interesting pick. I think he'll probably run well. 18th is a good enough starting spot for him that he could make a climb just a little. I don't think he'll win the race, but he can move up for sure. Eric Almarola, I think he'll be so chalky. That's why I wanted to avoid him this week.
He always lets me down normally when I pick him.
I feel like it's the same way with me too. It's difficult to find the week to pick him because I mean he runs well, but it's difficult to find the week.
It's like when you never expect it.
Absolutely. Reddick, I think he'll finish worse than 13th. I think he'll finish outside of the top 20 for sure. Moving on up, Alex Bowman's not terrible at Martinsville. I think he'll be picked a lot actually in the 20th starting spot. But I don't know. I just don't feel right picking Alex Bowman this week for some reason. I just don't know. If you haven't noticed it already, we have 11,333 on average left. That gives you a lot of good drivers. If you move up, I think I'll cut it off at Alex Bowman. You move up, and we'll move down. Well, I'll bring it down just a little bit. Okay. We already established Denny Hamlin. He was our top tier 1 guy that I wanted to get out of the way. You know what? I'm just going to do it. Ryan Blaney. 4th starting spot. Sixth average finish in the last 6 races. He has 5 top 5s. Those are his only top 5s in the last 6 races at Martinsville. He finished 2nd in both races last year. So, runs well here. Doesn't have a win. Maybe he's due. I don't know. 11.5 is a good price for him, and I think he'll stay up at the top. Top 5, I think is. I'm not gonna say it's a lock, but I think he'll run well here. We'll just move. Well, we'll stay where we're at. You have a lot of good drivers here. William Byron starting in 3rd. I think he could win. He could win. He's ran well this year at short tracks, and I mean he's ran well almost everywhere. To be honest. I think I said early on at Daytona that I think this is his year to shine. I think him and Bowman will have to step up, and I think for the most part they have so far. But we're going to bypass him this week. Kevin Harvick did not look good at the Bristol Dirt Race. He looked all kinds of confused. Yeah. I was kind of surprised when I saw that he was starting in 9th place. I thought he was going to be starting around 20th, and I was like, he's a no-go for sure. But in 9th place, I think that's a decent starting spot for him, especially at $10,000. That's really cheap for him because he's good everywhere. But we're going to go pretty similar to what AustYn's doing, his strategy. Kyle Busch. Starting in the 12th spot, Kyle Busch has an 8.5 average finish in the last 6. Dive a little deeper. In the last 10 races, He is the lap leader. He has the most laps led. He has led 942 laps of the 5,000. So
20% almost.
He's almost leading 20% of the races in the last 10. So that's what you want, FanDuel. DraftKings as well. I mean, if he can get those laps led, it's more valuable, honestly, in DraftKings.
Yep.
So 12th is not that bad of a climb. There are drivers that it's not often that they win beyond 10th, but it does happen. I think the last time it happened was like 2 or 3 years ago. It does happen. So Kyle Busch could get a win here. I wouldn't put it past him for sure, because he's kind of went on a negative downslope just slightly.
Yeah.
But he's got to turn it around at some point. And I think Martinsville could be this race to get that win and get that momentum shifted, because he did run well at the Bristol Dirt race, and he just had problems. So I think he's a great option at Martinsville this week. So we'll move back up. We have 12,000 to spend. That leaves us Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick, William Byron. We're going to go with Joey Logano. Starting from the pole. He was last week's winner at the Bristol Dirt race. Had a really good run in that race. But at Martinsville, he has a 6.8 average finish in the last 6. I think that is third among active drivers in the last 6. He has 1 win in those last 6, 3 top 5s, and he has the second most laps led in that span. So, starting in the pole, I mean, you only have down to go, but at this track, down, unless you're in just trouble the whole race, it's not far enough down where it's going to really matter. If he can lead some laps, like AustYn said, 100 laps. If he can lead 100 laps, you are golden.
25 points.
You're golden. And if he can get a top 5, that's good. That's what you want. So we're going to clean this up. Denny Hamlin, winningest driver among current drivers at Martinsville, hasn't won since 2015. Look for him to get that win and shut off that winless streak at Martinsville, because he's just really good here. We didn't have anybody up there. Joey Logano, like I said, he's just solid here, starting from the pole. I mean, you want track position, and what better way to start than from the pole? Ryan Blaney, 5 top 5s in the last 6. He's just a really solid driver here. He's hard to pass up. Kyle Busch hasn't won since 2017 here, but he could be in for another win. He's a big-time lap leader here, and I think he could definitely be competing for the win, without a doubt. And we're going to travel all the way down here to Ross Chastain, starting in 27th. Ran well here in the Xfinity and Truck Series. I think he could give you some positive position differential. Hopefully he'll get you a top 15. I think he could do it. And price $3,500, that's low. I mean, you're not going to get any better value, I don't think. So that's what we have lined up for FanDuel.
And it's amazing looking at the price points in terms of what DraftKings and FanDuel has. The fact that that is more than likely, well, not more than likely, but it's very likely that you could have the 1, 2, 3, 4 finishers.
It's possible.
Very likely. I mean, it's very highly likely, I feel like. And it's just crazy. I mean, Ross Chastain, you never know. He could get a top 10. And if that happened, I mean, that's a great lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, of course.
That's a winning lineup.
Oh,
that's what that is.
Yeah, that's a heck of a tournament lineup.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I know that FanDuel, in terms of DraftKings, so DraftKings, you're going to have picks all over the place. But in FanDuel, I mean, do you really see anybody picking Ricky Stenhouse on FanDuel? 45. He's more expensive than Ross Chastain. That makes no sense.
No.
I mean, it really, to me, I know he was actually, I'm not 100%, but I think he was, yeah, he was lower than Ross on DraftKings. It's just two totally different dynamics. So where I made a comment about 25 or 100 laps led is 25 points, that's not true in Fanduel. It's like, what, 10? I think it's 0.1 per lap led.
Yeah, it's 0.1 per lap led and 0.1 per lap completed.
Yeah, so it's two totally different systems. Always when you're making your lineup, try not to. And I know sometimes we tend to say we think that this is going to happen. Try to go off of value. Try to go off of what they're giving you and like, is he a good value there? It's like that in baseball. It's like that in football. It's like that in basketball. Anything DFS related, you always want to go with the best value because most of the time, if you try to predict things, you're probably not going to be right. Most of the time, that's why people in Vegas make lots of money because they go off of probability and odds. And if you pick drivers that are, priced at a good point, that's the way people do in baseball, fantasy baseball. They pick players at certain points, not necessarily because they think they'll outperform everybody because you'll get hurt in a hurry. But anyway, that's what we got to offer for you. Check us out on www.thesportschief.com, also on Twitter at thesportschief, and of course, as you know, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that bell notification to let you know when our videos go up. So we try to put out this content week in and week out, but we've been kind of struggling with getting the videos out here, but hopefully we can get some smooth sailing, get some videos out, get some good content. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, just put that down below. Also on Twitter, we'll put it up so you can comment on there as well. Got anything?
Yes. Wrestling fans. Separate topic, but wrestling fans. WrestleMania weekend is here. I have a scorecard already made up, so if you want to check that out and fill one out, they're always fun to do. I'll have some predictions for you as well. It's 2 nights. It's Saturday night and Sunday night, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend. But we're here to do the race lineups, and I don't like to talk about that too much, but that's what I have for you.
Well, hey, if we can bring in some wrestling fans in here too, that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of to where they can talk to each other. So, yeah, that's a good plug there.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
But we have a lot of other interesting content on the website as well. But anyway, I hope you have a great race weekend at Martinsville and a best of luck to you. The Blue-Emu Maximum Pain Relief had look there, 500. All right, we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.